The 2012 drought loss estimates as they relate to agriculture were released at the Governor's Water Conference. Joining us now is Dave Shideler, our Community Development Specialist. And Dave, you put those numbers together. What did you find this year?
So we found that the total impact was about $426 million. A little more than half of that was crop-related losses. Another third of that, roughly, was livestock losses. And then the remainder were a combination of municipal costs that were incurred related to drought-stressed landscapes, and then wildfire impacts.
Okay. And looking at these numbers, last year significantly more. Give us that picture and kind of what's different this year.
Sure. So this year's estimates are about a fourth of what they were last year. So last year we had about $1.6 billion worth of impacts. And this year, again, a little more than 400 million, so about a quarter. The difference between the 2 years is twofold. One is last year, all the livestock losses, for the most part, were incurred. So a lot of farmers and ranchers liquidated their herds, and so that put a lot less stress in terms of needs for supplemental feeds and extra hay to feed the herds. But then also we had there were additional herds or additional cattle to cull from the herds. So the farmers that had the cattle, kept the cattle, didn't add or take away from their existing herds at this point. So that was part of the story. The other part of the story is the real impacts of this year's drought. It's what's termed a flash drought. So it was a very intense but short period of time. It occurred after we got the wheat harvest out and really only impacted our double crops. Those crops that we put in as a double crop. So early soybeans, corn, and wheat we were able to harvest, but those crops that were still in the ground or were looking to mature in the July-August timeframe were the ones that we really lost. And so given that it was that just short duration of an impact meant we didn't lose our entire crop like we did last year.
Okay. 2 years, though, over $2 billion of agricultural losses specifically, but that, of course, has a ripple effect. Talk about that. So
we mentioned as part of our drought estimates this year that we're beginning to capture additional costs to municipalities, for example. The wildfires themselves put extra burden on rural and municipal fire departments. As one example. But we also know that as farmers are beginning to anticipate continued drought, that they're changing their management practices, which means they're varying their input purchases, but then also how they go about mitigating that risk has impacts for farm income, which in turn has impacts for consumption spending in the communities. And so those combination of things we're trying to get a better handle on and try to anticipate what those are going to look like in the future.
We talk about drought almost every week on Sunup. It's not going away anytime soon. We're getting ready to enter what looks to be a third year of drought in a row. Right. Serious impact also on the cotton crop and sort of the ripple effect in the southwest part of the state?
Absolutely. So this year there was no planting actually down, particularly in the Lugar-Altus irrigation district, because they just didn't have the water to irrigate. And so there's farmers are beginning to wonder, should they consider planting other crops? And that obviously will have some pretty big impacts in terms of the value-added processing of that cotton in that region as well.
Now that you have the information, these numbers that you put together, how do you and the folks in Extension address drought for the people of Oklahoma?
Sure. So we've got a couple of things that we're looking to do. Certainly our livestock and crop specialists have developed some and are continuing to develop materials on how to manage in the midst of a drought, how to plan for future scenarios of drought. A new product that was just released this past fall was how to rebuild your herd in the midst of drought. So that's one new product that folks should be looking for. We're also beginning to develop some materials for municipal water managers as well, and helping them understand what are the most effective conservation techniques. Since municipal water use during the summertime is 60 to 70% of it is just residential use. Primarily that's watering people's lawns. And so how can those municipal water managers best reduce that water use? We also have some discussions. We're trying to put together some conversations around long-term policy. What needs to be in place to help mitigate some of the effects, but also help Oklahoma households be better prepared for these kind of severe drought situations.
Okay, good advice. Thanks for running the numbers. And of course, we'll be talking to you again in 2013, I'm sure.
Sounds great.
Okay, Dave Shideler, our Community Development Specialist.